I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.
All right. What's going on, Mysonne Lennon?
I am black, blessed, and highly favored, Tamika D. Mallory.
Yes, welcome to the TMI show, okay? That's what it is.
The Tamika and Mysonne information.
That's right.
Truth, motivation, and inspiration.
That's what's up. So we have a lot going on today. This week has been a heavy week because we have had the loss of now our ancestor, Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr., I have known Reverend Jackson since I was a very, 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 very little girl. And so the memories keep flowing. At times there's tears. At times there's just moments when I'm laughing uncontrollably, like literally, because he was a fun guy. And there's so much, the history, it makes you want to read back. It just makes you want to look at old pictures. There's so much. I'm not really good at finding pictures. I don't know how people do it, right? When folks pass away, it seemed like people have 100 pictures on ready because maybe, I don't know what they do. Maybe somebody needs to teach me because in my phone, I have photos that go back to 2012. Like when I'm looking for stuff, I can go all the way to 2012. Mm-hmm. I could not tell you where to find one picture of one person. The only reason why I knew where to find the two pictures that I posted of Reverend Jackson, meanwhile, over the years, I have a gazillion. But those two pictures I knew because one, Reverend Mark Thompson, who's going to be coming up to talk to us in a moment, he sent me a picture. There's a story behind it. And then the other picture is from a place where I saw him in August of 2025. And I remembered that they came and got me off the stage. I was getting ready to be the keynote speaker at the Chicago Bar Association Gala. And I was, as I was getting ready to speak, they came and got me and said that Reverend Jackson had just come in and he wanted to see me. And I went down off the stage and went over to where he was. And so I remembered that happened because the other thing that I remembered is that he was ailing. You know, you could tell that his time was limited. And so that I just, that stuck in my head. And I'm like, I know that date was. So then I had to go look up what was the date, based upon the invitation that was in my email, and then go to the phone, and I found it. I don't know how you do that to 2012. I don't know, but people know. They do it all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's.
I figured out, because you have time. They have like year, date, and all of that in your phone.
I get it, but what if you don't know what year it was that I took a picture with?
Well, you got to know the year. You got to kind of narrow it down. Because when I'm thinking about, I was just asking about, the video that we have him when, the conviction of Derek Chauvin. So yeah, you just gotta, I think what you do is narrow the times. Like, certain times and events. If you like, okay, I was with this person at this event. What day was that? What year was that? And then you narrow it to the year.
I guess so, but I'm not really, well, first of all, I don't really like taking pictures. And I'm learning because my mentor, Cora Masters Berry, she loves to take pictures. And I be like, oh my God, I don't want to take any more pictures. I hate taking pictures. But as time goes on, I see the importance because when Hazel Dukes passed away, it was really difficult for me to find quality pictures of us. There was a million pictures of me next to her, sitting, talking to her, just in the same space, even us grinning, smiling. There was a million, but they were grainy because cameras weren't that good many years ago. Some of them was dirty because we never cleaned the camera when we used to take pictures. There was all kinds of things that just didn't make it a good picture. And so I could have posted a gazillion things, but I didn't have it. And it's not just so much about posting, but it's also for your own keepsake that you could go back and remember the stories and the situations that you was in and all of that. So, but I did find this one picture when Hazel passed of Cora Berry and Hazel Dukes in a SUV coming to New York to cuss some people out on my behalf. And the picture is so hilarious of the two of them in the car. Like, what's good? Who and where we at?
Yeah. I'll never forget that picture.
You would never, that moment, that whole
thing. But when I see that picture, it just brings back the whole moment.
Oh my God, so crazy. So many things have happened. But long live Reverend Jesse L. Jackson. Reverend Jackson's his contribution to our society is one that will, now he gets to get his proper flowers, because now the historians get to tell the story that is beyond whether they liked his personality. You have to measure what he did.
That's right.
And that is going to be, I guess, the gift for his family, is that because in his life, it was a lot of hate. And I'm sure some of it was something he did, right? Because that's life. We all have moments where we make bad decisions, sometimes mistakes. And I like to say decisions because sometimes we know what we're doing ain't right. Like, that's just it. You make a decision today to be like, you know what? I'm going to cut this person off. And then everybody's mad at you. And guess what? You earned it, as they would say.
That's right.
But overall, when you look at his story, his family will finally get an opportunity for it to be told, that it would be measurable to the sacrifice that they know that he made. And so I am forever grateful to Reverend Jackson. I'm grateful for him looking at me and believing that I was somebody who was worth his conversation, his time. And as I wrote on my post, I just thank God that I was able to touch an icon, because that is who he truly, truly is.
Facts.
Absolutely. So let's talk about these two issues real quick, because we want to bring up the Reverend Mark Thompson, who's going to come on. He is one of Reverend Jackson's He is one of Reverend Jackson's mentee, and also our dear brother. And I was, thinking who could bring the spirit to the show, so that we could, really talk about Reverend Jackson's life. And so he's going to be coming on to talk to us. And then we have a great guest that will be following Reverend Thompson, Mark, as we call him. So the two things I want to talk about is, number one, and I'm not going to say much about this, but the Epstein files really got me messed up. No, it's really serious. I didn't write this on social media because I was like, I'm going to talk about it on the show. The first day that I decided to go down the Epstein rabbit hole, because before that, I was like, white people doing white people shit. I ain't got time for that. And remember when I was up here, you and I were talking about it one day, and I was making the case that it's not just white Epstein, okay? Because the obsession with kids, it's in every community. It's in every community. And people do sick shit. The difference is we would never be able to get away with it in the same fashion that these white people have done. And so I didn't do but so much research. But one night, because that damn perimenopause be on my back at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning when I cannot sleep. So I woke up one night, 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning. And in fact, it was before that. I woke up about 1 o'clock. And I started going down the rabbit hole. So for an hour, I was online, Googling. I was watching videos. Then I made it to YouTube. And I was being careful not to be on like pages where they taking you down like bullshit rabbit holes. I was really reading witness statements. I was reading journals of young girls who were basically breeders for Ghislaine Maxwell and old boy and Epstein. I was on in like CBS and CNN and reports from all of these places and kind of piecing together what was fact from fiction as far as I could see. By the time about 2:10 hit, I remember saying to myself, girl, you got to go to sleep. This shit is sick. You have to go to sleep. You need to stop. And I dozed off in like a couple of seconds. I woke up again at 2:30. So that was a 20-minute span from when I know that I was dozing off to when I woke up. And the whole 20 minutes that I was asleep, I was being stabbed. Like I was telling somebody in the dream, hey, they killing people, they eating babies, they breeding girls, they doing this, it's kidnapping. I'm explaining this to a person, and as I'm talking out of my mouth to them, they looked at me like, oh yeah, and started stabbing me. And I was being stabbed for a long time. I remember I felt like I was floating, and I just kept being stabbed. It was like they were stabbing me in my stomach. This is happening to me in my dream. So the next day, I woke up and I went back in the rabbit hole like a nutcase. But the next day, I told all of y'all, anybody who would listen, I was like, yo, I was being stabbed in my dream. The Epstein files are crazy. Then I said, you have to put this down. It's too heavy. It's too much. You got to put it down. Then I saw a video from Eric Benet, the artist, the great artist, and he said that he went down the rabbit hole. He was all messed up in the head, and that he had been hearing screams for the whole day since reading things in these files. Then I saw a guy on social media who is a victim of sexual assault, and he was explaining how it had impacted him and messed him up. He was a journalist who was supposed to have a report done on what he had read in the Epstein files thus far, and he said he could not get the files done. He was crying. He was snot crying, okay? Then I said I wasn't going back, but that perimenopause tapped me on my shoulder, woke me up another night, and I went back into the rabbit hole. And then after that, there was fires everywhere. Everything was burning when I went back to sleep. I'm not saying this to sensationalize anything. I'm telling you that this was my real experience. That every time I picked it up and really did my reading and my research, that shit entered my spirit. It is dark. It's dark as hell. When I say dark, and the sad part is that it reminds me of something, and I think that's why it disturbs me so much. It reminds me of stories that I have read about what was done to us while we were enslaved, right? Like while we were while we were staying in Africa for all of that time, and we traveled from traveled from the slave dungeons and went to different parts where enslavement was happening in different places all around the continent. It's not just Ghana. We learned stories of things that happened to people in Kenya. We learned stories in Egypt. Yes, we learned what we created, but we also learned of horrific things that happened to people all over the continent. And when I listened to the rape, the torture, the things that we heard when we were in the dungeons in Ghana, and they told us about the rape that went on and how on top of the women's whatever that's called, the cave or whatever it's called, the dungeon and whatever, and then it was a hole that led into the quote unquote master's house. Remember, all of these years later, many years later, since this happened to us, you can still smell the stench of menstrual cycle and just everything, feces, everything. You could smell it in the dungeons. And I knew it was a menstrual cycle smell because as soon as we walked in there, you and I think Angelo ran out. And the women, we were still able to stay, and that's because we know the smell. We know the smell. Like, that's how deep this shit was. And on top, remember they had a staircase where he could look down and pick any one of the slaves of the enslaved individuals down to children, and they would have to go up into his quarters, and he would have sex with them, torture them, abuse them, allow other people to come and sleep with them. So this is reminiscent what was going on with Epstein. Epstein had traps underneath the house that led into the ocean. What you think they were doing with that? Throwing bodies down into the ocean. I mean, this situation is so dark. And I'm with Eric Benet. I know people saying they don't want the experience that I had. They got too much other shit going on to be getting bogged down in something else dark that you got to pick up and deal with and take on in your spirit. But it's just too calm out here for me. It's too calm out here for me. And I done seen white people tear shit up when they didn't. A friend of ours, our sister Karis, she said this to me the other day. I done seen them tear shit up. They don't win the Super Bowl. If they team don't win, they tear shit up. Okay? I done seen them have bar fights. I have seen what they can do. Meanwhile, people just walking around like this shit is normal. And I am traumatized.
I don't know why.
What you mean you don't know why? It's always traumatizing to know that a young girl was saying, I can't take no more.
No, it's not. I don't mean. Let me rephrase that. I know why you're traumatized. I just don't know why you don't understand why, they will fight about the Super Bowl and have bar fights and all of that and don't care about this, because there's a normalcy inside of a society that we don't live in, right? And it's been for years. There's this dark underworld of these people who they call the elites, who have this is their reality, and they control the narrative of the media. They control how it's perceived. They control what you hear. They control all of those things. So you're not seeing no outrage, not because there is no outrage, but they have made sure that the outrage doesn't rise to where there's an uprising. They're going to make sure of that. So you're going to see, here and there people say things that come into your algorithms so that you feel like you're supported in it, but they're not going to let it rise to a level of public discourse to where people are really doing what actually needs to be done.
No, and I'll say I am following more white people right now than I ever have, and it is because there are some of them who are really drum majors on this, and they're not letting it go, and they have big platforms, and people are saying things, and I do see that. But the masses, right? Yeah. If y'all can tear it up about your favorite team, y'all ought to be really going off. And to have the president of the United States continuously gaslight people and say, I've been cleared by who? Cleared by Pam Bondi and them? Like, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, it's a disgrace. It is ridiculous, and I am sick to my stomach,
as you should be,
about what I have found. So I just thought that we should start in setting the tone that I'm pissed about the Epstein files. And it also reminds me of what happened to us. God only knows. The stories haven't even been told. At least we got some files on old boy to see what he was doing. But imagine the files of the many, 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 many black bodies that were exploited as they traveled through the Middle Passage. It's unbelievable.
It's rough.
And the stuff is still happening here today. Let me talk about my thought of the day real quick. Next week, we got to talk about Target. There's been some updates. We've been meeting with the senior level leaders there at Target, and there's been some big developments in terms of where we stand. It would be 381 days today, actually, as this show is released, or in these days, 381 days from the beginning of the boycott, which coincides with the 381 days of the Montgomery bus boycott. And so we will have some updates on that. Lastly, for my thought of the day, let's talk really quickly about the SAVE Act, because I have to use the white folk programs sometimes because they don't believe us when we say. So now I'm using Claude, so I have to go use the white folk AI, because when we try to tell people, I don't know, it seems like we talk words they don't understand. So I said, you know what? Let me go on here and use white folk stuff. So now I'm using Claude, okay? Because they don't want you to use ChatGPT. AI in general is problematic, but we are not going to be, as a society, able to in any way get beyond it, because it's already taken over everything. So if you don't know how to manipulate it for the things you need, I don't be doing facial pictures, and I don't just be on there asking it for directions and stuff like that, because but even Google has an AI thing now. You ask it a question and it follows up with the AI question, right? Gemini. It's called Gemini. It follows up with something called Gemini, so you can ask it more questions. This is unfortunately the way of the world. I didn't want a new cell phone, to be quite honest with you. I was fine with the 11s and the 10s and all of that, but they just keep on making you boxing you into these damn situations. So I understand people who feel a way about the AI, but I don't know where else to go to get the information so I could tell it to people who don't seem to believe the things that we telling them. So I had to go to the white folk program. So now let me tell you what the white folks said about the SAVE Act, okay? So this is what I did. I started asking some very specific questions, because what happened is that last week, I posted something, which was a video from Ayanna Pressley and a number of other people, and Yvette Clarke also has a statement in it. It's a post that I reposted from Revolt. It was on their Instagram. And so they were, they had a slide that multiple people were on there talking about the problem with the SAVE Act. And Ayanna Pressley mentioned that all of this is a problem that's not a problem that they're trying to start. The Republicans have created a situation.
Exactly.
So first of all, then in the comment section, to get to my point, there are people who are saying, oh my God, how dare y'all act like black people don't have passports? How dare y'all act like, like we don't have the appropriate paperwork? What the hell are you talking about? Like, y'all ought to be ashamed of yourselves for acting like we don't have the things that we need to provide the proper proof of citizenship to register to vote, to change your registration, to do any of those things. You have to prove your citizenship. And they are not allowing you to use the new real ID, because I guess the first ID was fake. So now the new real ID you're supposed to have. And that is not even a piece, a form of ID that is acceptable to these people. They now want you to have a passport and or a birth certificate. And the person in the comment section said, we got that. What you mean? Yeah, we got passports and we have birth certificates. First of all, let's just be clear. See, I know these things because a lot of times people see life, as you said, Erica Ford told you this many years ago, and it sticks with us. We see life through our narrow lens, even if it is a privileged lens. Yeah. Even if it's a privileged lens. Even if I'm living in a house that I paid for with millions of dollars and my bank account is packed, I still see life through that small lens. It's still, unless you understand the experiences of people who have not, you do not know what you're talking about. Having a passport is a privilege. It is a luxury. I know people who live in Brooklyn who have never traveled from Brooklyn to Manhattan. They have never been. They have no reason to have a passport. It is not something that they want to do, spending their money to get a passport. They might have their birth certificate, but now guess what? If you go into the category around women who are married, most women who are married, they never change their name on their birth certificate. So their other identification might have their married name, but their maiden name is on their birth certificate. Another category, elderly people. Some of them, people born before, I think, 1960, they was born in the house. They don't even have a birth certificate in the first place. My grandmother, I could promise you everything that I know in the world. My grandmother was a hardworking woman, an honorable woman, but she could not read. She could not.
Mm-hmm. That's a fact.
Okay, my other grandmother, my father's side, she may have been able to read, but she also came up at a time when I know for a fact her paperwork wasn't everything matching. This is being done intentionally to suppress voters. As we are moving towards the midterm elections, they are creating a problem that doesn't exist because there is no widespread voter fraud at all anywhere.
There's a million investigations that's proved that there's not widespread voter fraud.
They sued in Pennsylvania 43 times. They sued the Trump folks. Sued Pennsylvania 43 times, and the people in Pennsylvania won the election. The lawsuit
43 times.
43 times. There is no widespread voter fraud. So you people who want to come on my page and say, y'all ought to be ashamed of yourselves that you arguing against something that doesn't matter. People should have ID. We're not talking about ID because some states, they do make you show an ID to vote and to change it. They made me
show my ID when I went to vote the last time.
Yeah, sometimes they do. I haven't been asked all the time, but there have been times when I have.
But then you have to match your signature. Right.
Your signature.
So all of those things count.
And voting is a right. That is a right that you are afforded as part of the governing laws of our society, okay? It is not, you don't have to have a passport.
Yeah,
you do not
crazy.
have to have a passport. So I went to the white folks stuff because I said, let me get my data. Because, they're going to say, you ain't got no data that proves that. What you talking about? You don't know. You don't know. I asked a question. Is there a racial breakdown of the percentage of Americans who have passports? And let me tell you what it said. Hispanics / Latino people, 55% of them have passports. 55%. White Americans, only 42% have passports. Black Americans, only 34% of us have passports. Okay? Now, let's be clear about something here. Y'all said that the Spanish-speaking immigrants are the problem, and more of them have passports than white people and black people. So actually, if your thing is, because y'all not saying that the black people who look black, right, who present as black, are going into the voting polls and voting fraudulently. Mm-hmm. You also are not saying that white people are the problem at all. Y'all ain't got no problem with white immigrants. Ain't nobody bothering white immigrants. The people that you have honed in on are Spanish-speaking people who are undocumented or documented, who you later on find out you wrong for detaining in the first place. They got 55% passport.
Yeah, so it's defeating the purpose, and it's defeating the purpose of the people you believe are here illegal or voting illegally, and they already have passports. So that's not really a thing.
So they citizens.
So, and what you're doing is disenfranchising black people who were born here, because most of them don't have a reason to travel outside of America, and we living below the poverty line, so we're not traveling outside of our communities every day.
This is what I'm saying.
So some of us, especially if you live in the projects, the project haushole is generational.
Right.
And most of them don't go outside of the projects.
They go to the beach in Long Island, maybe. Some aunt or somebody comes by and takes you somewhere nice, and you might go there. And yes, this is true. This is not us being classist, because we know them. I know people. I know family members and friends who have never left their borough. They've never left their community. I have family members who live down south that have never gotten on a plane in their lives. Yep. In their lives. In fact, I know people who could fly if they wanted to, but they just don't. They don't take planes. That's just not something they do. Jamani Williams, our public advocate, is one of those individuals. He's done it to leave the country once or twice, maybe twice, right? Maybe when he was a kid, he doesn't know. But in terms of how he lives every single day, he does not use a passport regularly, because the man don't get on planes and he does not fly that often. So imagine if you somebody who also does not have the means. And I'm telling you that 34% of black people do not have a passport. Now you could sit here and we could all with our privileged asses say, well, you need to get one. Who's going to pay? Are you the person in my comments who's saying that people need to get their passports? Are you going to pay for the 66%? Is it six? Yeah, it would be 66% of the people who don't have passports. Are you going to go get it for them? Since you got so much to say, what are you going to do to lift what is called a poll tax? Because that is exactly what this is. That you are now making people with their human right to vote, you are putting a poll tax in front of them where they are going to have to pay money in order to access the ballot box, which means that they are being suppressed.
So you got people who already don't believe in the system. They tired of the system already. And then they saying, you know what? I'm going to go vote. But then it's like, now I got to pay to vote. And you tell me I got to go get some extra shit that I'm probably going to never use again. And the only reason I'm getting is to vote.
And I got to pay my money.
I'm just going to stay home.
That's it.
I got it. And that's what they want.
And that's exactly the point. So for anybody who is thinking to themselves, well, I have all of my stuff, or I know I could get it, and I understand. I mean, you do kind of have to prove. You need to understand what's happening and why these people, there is an intention when there is not a problem and you're trying to fix it. I was trying to tell somebody the other day, that's like you got a tenant in your house and you go to the tenant and say, your water's working fine, all the pipes and everything in this house is fine, but we're tearing all of these pipes out anyway. We know you don't have any issues, but we're just going to renovate. We're going to tear everything up and we're going to rebuild. Guess what? First of all, that's a privilege. That's a privilege that you now have the resources to be able to renovate. But second of all, how dare you say to the tenant, and I'm gonna raise your rent, and you still gotta leave here, okay? Because we can ready to renovate the pipes in your place. Ain't gonna be no hot water, ain't gonna be no clean running water, and I need you to pay a little bit for this inconvenience until we get it done. A privilege that I am now responsible for. So it's some bullshit, and we don't have time to get into the issue of the birth certificates, because I went to look at it and it said the birth certificates with the women who, like I said, their maiden names and their names on their ID not matching. But you know who it said that will be disenfranchised the most? And this is what they want. It said elderly people.
Oh, yeah.
Of all races. Elderly people, and of course black people who are so I don't want to call us stupid because that's not cool, but some of us are so gullible, some of us are so up Trump's butt that we don't even understand the history of how our people, our elders couldn't even get paperwork because there was no hospital that would deliver a black child in our society. They wouldn't even give us the proper paperwork. You got people who don't even have their first name on their birth certificate, or they don't have their last name on their birth certificate. That stuff was never corrected. That's reparations. If America wants people to get the proper identification to be able, then you need to suspend all the fees, open up all the agencies to look back at the ancestral records of my grandmother and my great-grandmother. So if you want to implement a policy like that, I'm all for it. Let's do it. Let's get every person who is eligible for a passport and should have the correct birth certificate. Let's get that done. But then you know what? That's a pilot program that turns into a permanent program where you have to have agencies working with people. You don't wait until you have fucked up America. You have pissed people off. You shooting white folks in the face on the streets while you deporting people who some of them, and well, you said it was going to be about criminals, and now we know you haven't even done half. There's not even a 50% success rate in detaining these hardened criminals who are supposed to be illegals in our country, using their terminology. You've done all of this. You've pissed people off. Folks don't want y'all anymore, and we know that because every single election that has happened between when Donald Trump took office and right now, the Democrats have been wiping the floor with them, winning all types of things, and don't think Mamdani is not also a part of that, okay? And so now you realize y'all asses is about to be put out of power to a certain extent in the next election cycle, which is the midterm elections, and you now want to impose on people a poll tax through making them have proof of citizenship in order to register, in order to change their registration, and to create all kinds of chaos about a problem that doesn't even exist. And your stupid ass is in my comments talking about what you mean. We got ID. Don't make what you talking about? It's insulting. Oh, it's so insulting that 66% of black people don't have a passport. Why don't you take your ass down there to the passport office, put on your social media, meet me here. I'm going to help you get it. You know what? Get their documents together. Send all their stuff in for them to go nowhere, some of them who've never traveled anywhere. Should they have a passport? Absolutely. But as part of reparations in this country, I'm just saying, every person should have a passport.
Why?
Because,
if you're not traveling, why should you
I'll
have
tell
a
you one
passport?
reason, which is not necessarily what you expect me to say, but we might have to get the hell up out of here. Every person who can should have a passport. I believe in that 100%. And I also believe in the reparations of a country that would pay for it.
People scared to get a passport. They scared to go outside the country because
scared that you won't get back.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just ridiculous. That's what I have to say. I don't even know. My thought of the day is fuck that bullshit. The Save America Act My thought of the day is that the Save America Act is designed to disenfranchise people who are unlikely supporters of this administration. And white folks, you better listen up, because only 42% of you have passports. So not only are they attempting to disenfranchise us as black people, they are also coming down your street. So if you sit there and want to be a Trumpster and a MAGA, just know that you are about to be disenfranchised too. And elections have implications. Elections have consequences. And guess what? It's not just about who's running for president.
And they have casualties.
Knock on the door, just so you know. It's your city council person. It's your state representatives. It's everybody who's on the ballot in your community, your congressional leaders. It's all of that. So let's not be so racist till we stupid.
Oh, that's what we are.
All right, let's get into our guest. Y'all done got me upset, but Reverend Mark Thompson is coming up. And immediately following Reverend Mark Thompson, to remember Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, will be
A Fear at Mensa.
Yes, right. This week, while the death of Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. it was expected, but it's still very, 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 very painful. It's a sore spot for a lot of people. And, I strive in my life that one day when I go, people who never met me can say they felt an impact. But in this situation, it's not, of course, it's the people who don't know him. And that means that the people who do know him, people who got to spend time with him, people who worked alongside him, people who just happened to meet him once or twice, that the impact on us is really, really great. And it means so many things. It's like it signifies the end of a particular era. He's one of the only people, it's not many people, who lived during the time that Dr. King lived, but was fighting as hard as Dr. King, who could tell stories that were firsthand, and, his contributions are just so significant. I saw the Essence magazine put out a piece today on what Reverend Jackson taught us about boycotts, about economic justice, and, just those types of things we will see unfold for many days. And so I thought to myself, man, wow, I have so many stories. I have so many stories of different encounters, times that I served him, days that I spent all day in the car with him. And of course, Reverend Sharpton, who, my heart goes out to, because I know that Reverend Sharpton in many ways walked in Reverend Jackson's footsteps. I watched them be everything, big brother, I'm a father figure. I watched so much happen. So it's a lot of emotions that's in that. Tuesday morning, one of the people who contacted me very, very, very early in the morning, late in the night, to inform me of Reverend Jackson's passing was my friend, who is also another deep connection that I have, is our friend, but to Reverend Jackson, and that is Reverend Mark Thompson. And I thought that it would be just special for us on the show to have Mark to come and talk about some of his experiences. I mean, you have your own. At this point, all these years, you've met Reverend Jackson. I'm just thinking about a time recently. Well, it was in August during the Democratic National Convention, where we spent time with him, and he was joking around with you. He couldn't really talk, but he still was, joking around with you. And, he just, after a while, he knew, like, okay, I know this guy. I see him often, So many experiences, so many moments that I can remember, but I do know that he loved him some Mark Thompson. He loved Mark Thompson.
Sure did.
And Mark loved Reverend Jackson as well. So today we are joined during our show by Reverend Mark Thompson, who's been on the show many times. He's our mentor. He's our big brother and our friend. And today, I'm sure, Mark, you are in your own sense of mourning about losing someone that, even though you were there at his bedside, you knew he was going, the day was coming, but still the impact of the moment it is, something that can't be expressed or really contained in words that the English language provides us, because it's such a huge loss. So thank you, first of all, for joining us today. And then also, just thank you for being a constant in Reverend Jackson's life, because I know you were there as his real friend and supporter and his real brother all the way until the last days.
Well, thank you both, Tamika and Mice. It's always good to be with you, and grateful for the work that you all continue to do. You all really are an inspiration to me more than you know. It can get lonely out here on the front lines. So whenever your friends are standing up for what's right, that's helpful. And it's a bit more lonely for me this week because of Reverend Jackson. And you're right. I would talk to you. I'd been to Chicago. I'd spent time with him even recently. And you think you're prepared, but you never really are. And when I got the call early this morning, I was like, okay. I wasn't prepared. Wasn't expecting it this morning, but I knew the day was coming. But it's really um, all the calls since then,
Mm.
because you do so much in a life with someone, you don't necessarily remember every detail, but others do. And people call and say, Mark, we remember when you and him did this and you and him did that. And I just before joining you got a text from um, Mayor Brandon Johnson in Chicago, and we were together last time I was there. He and I together spent time with Reverend Jackson, and he just sent me some praying hands because he's someone else that Reverend Jackson mentored
Mm-hmm.
and and really started him on his path. We kind of did that together. Um, so it has been quite an experience, and um, y'all find this funny. Um, Mac's wife used to say, "Mark, all of your friends are old. Dick Gregory and Jesse Jackson and people like that, and Walter Fauntleroy. And with all those old friends, when they all precede you in passing, you're not gonna have no friends." And she wasn't really saying that in a complimentary sense. Of course, she didn't know I have y'all as friends. But I must admit, those brothers um, made a difference in my life. And Dick Gregory and Reverend Jackson, I shared something in common. There was a level of estrangement from our biological fathers.
Mm.
And we bonded around that. And men who go through that tend to do that.
Mm.
And so I think that's what made us close as well. And lastly, I'll just say, I remind, all the young people, listen to your elders,
Mm.
take heed, sit at their feet. But most importantly, listen to those and appreciate those. Don't take for granted those who believe in you.
Mm.
A lot of people in life aren't going to believe in you. Even some of our own family members don't.
Mm.
But Reverend Jackson believed in a lot of us. Um, and that was meaningful at the time. And he believed in me. And I'm grateful. I'm thankful.
Beautiful. As I sit here and think, Tamika was just saying that we had many moments with the Reverend Jackson, and I was always enamored by his ability to articulate and just reach people. I remember the first time I seen him on TV, and I was a young boy, and he was running for president, and I had never just seen a black man have that statuesque that way and speak in that manner and captivate so many different people, and later on actually meeting him and seeing him, it was like a superhero.
Right, right.
And then, my most fondest memory is when we were in Minnesota. Derek Chauvin was convicted of killing George Floyd, and we were all in the room waiting to hear the verdict. It was me, Tamika, it was Ben Crump, it was Sharpton, and and it was also Jesse. And
Yeah, everybody, the
the
family,
whole
George
family
Floyd's
was
family
his
was there.
family
Trade
was
the Truth
there.
was
Trey
in
the Truth
there.
was in there. And
Jamal Bryant.
Jamal Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
It was just all of us. And when the verdict was given, he started crying. Reverend Jackson started crying, and I remember hugging him, and we really just all hugged and just seeing him cry, and it was like, wow, we actually are seeing the fruits of the fight that he had put in for so many years, and he was, you could tell that he was ailing at that moment, but it didn't stop him from celebrating the moment of actually seeing victory and understanding. And I just understood that he had contributed so much to that, and that was probably, I think that was the most touching moment. And then after that, when we was at the DNC, he was just so playful with us, right? And, he wasn't really talking that much, but you could just see the joy in his face as he looked with us. He seen people familiar that, were actually in the work, and him and Tamika had their own little special thing. But when he seen me, like she said, he noticed me and was like, yeah, I always see you around now, and I'm really comfortable with you now, and I see the work that you're doing. So that level of acknowledgement was good for me. As a person mentored by Reverend Jackson, what was that like for you? And at what age was you first being mentored by him?
I'll say around 16 or 17, we
Wow.
first met in the flesh.
You about 90 years old. You mean to tell me? Nah, I'm just messing with you, Mark.
I know it seems like it.
Well, in our
It
years,
seems,
we got like dog years out here, for
yeah,
real.
it seems like it. But I was about 16 years old. It was 1983. Of course, I first saw him on Sesame Street.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met him at the moment he was running for president, or announcing the run. It was Run Jesse Run in '83, and it was electrifying. This generation had its Obama moment. Before that, we had that Jesse Jackson moment. Um, and I remember him saying that campaign was not just about him winning, but it was also about our self-respect. And having heard "I Am Somebody," I didn't even realize there were folks who thought I was a nobody at a young age. Hearing that, so there's a reason he's saying that. And then when he ran, he said, "We've got to win our self-respect," and I knew there was a reason for that too. I had already been raised in a civil rights church after the civil rights movement. James Lawson was there before I came along. And my mother used to weep 2 times a year, on April 4th, the day of Dr. King's assassination, and on Good Friday, whenever Good Friday fell. And sometimes the two overlapped. And that had a profound impact. My mother was very empathic. I was like, why do you cry all the time when that happened? And she would tell me what that experience was like. And so Reverend Jackson, more than any of Dr. King's disciples, was the most visible, and as you alluded to, Mice, the most prolific in recounting his story, the gospel of Dr. King. Now, mind you, some of his disciples didn't like that. That's a whole nother thing. But he was the most outspoken in reciting that gospel. So he literally was interpreting the story of a man whose death made my mother cry. And I watched her do that. And so I was very curious about him, and wanted to know more and wanted to understand more. And then, of course, when he heard my story, he was even more interested. Um, and he was always looking for people to mentor. I mean, he was a social butterfly, you know. And he loved all the young people he came in contact with. That's why he loved you too, Tamika, and you, my side. I mean, y'all doing things. Yeah, Rem Jackson wanted to be in it. He wanted to be in everything.
That's true.
Right? So he wasn't gonna leave any stone unturned. Um, and so the campaign, 16, 17 years old, and involved in the campaign at a very young age. Um, and then of course the South African embassy. I'm out here going to jail with him and Stevie Wonder. Uh, and so I was just really consumed and in this incubator of activism, and that's all I knew. Um, and every step of the way, he would share jewels with me, and he would give words of advice. He always wanted to hire me, and I would say okay, but for whatever reason, never materialized. We maintained a personal relationship, and I'm kind of glad it didn't become an employer-employee
Absolutely.
relationship because it would have been different. The same thing about Reverend Sharpton. Uh, I've never been an employee. We've never been co-workers. And I think for a lot of reasons that makes a difference. Reverend Jackson put Al Sharpton and me on at different times, a few years apart. But you wouldn't know Al Sharpton if it weren't for the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And you wouldn't know Mark Thompson if it weren't for the Reverend Jesse Jackson. He saw the importance of mentoring. And then, man, shoot, I took my children around him.
Right.
And he would always leave an impact. He wanted that because he understood the struggle we're in, and he wanted to pass it forward. He always did. And so I'm even thankful that my children got to sit at his feet and be inspired by him and touch the hem of his garment. My condolences to his children and his
Absolutely.
grandchildren, because you lose something when your parent and your grandparent shares all that time with everybody else. And he did that with me and with so many others, and I'm thankful that he did. Um, I do feel a little lonelier today,
Mm-hmm.
this week. I didn't think I would feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Tamika and my son, I think at this moment, if we never thought about it before, um, we are the adults in the room now,
Oh yeah.
and we have to be that way, act that way, and mend the divisions
Mm-hmm.
between all the other adults, because this is no time for pettiness or self-aggrandizement. A lot of people want to do celebrity activism now. That won't save us.
Mm-hmm.
We need to learn from the mistakes of our elders and our ancestors and come together.
It's heavy, as you were talking, I was just thinking about the rooms that I sat in. I was a little girl. So, I didn't know much. All I could do was listen. And I tell you, when young people are around, folks don't think you know what's happening, right? They think that it's all over your head. But actually, young people know a lot. Let me see what it's a series that we got into. I can't remember anyway. I was watching the show, and there was a man who was in a wheelchair, and he was robbing people in various ways. And he said, when you're down, they said, how did you get away with all of this? And he said, when you're down here, nobody
lawyer.
pays attention.
The Lincoln lawyer.
The Lincoln lawyer said nobody sees you when you're down here. And I feel like as a kid, in many ways, people overlook me now. I don't mean that they didn't believe in me, because to your point about how we know Reverend Sharpton, you know me, not you, but the world knows me because Reverend Sharpton believed in me and put me on.
Right.
And Reverend Richardson. So, I have to say that. But it's still, as a kid, people don't think you're paying attention. And I paid attention to everything. So I understood the nuances of the good days and the bad days and the conflicts and all of that stuff. And it's just, those memories are things, some of it you'll share, some of it we will share, some of it we'll never talk about. There'll be, the things that we will keep close to the chest. But there's so many memories. I was thinking, Mark, that Reverend Jackson obviously believed strongly that our economic justice was the civil rights issue, right? And I wish you could contextualize that for us today, to just talk about what was it like, working with him, knowing that he cared so much about what corporations, and this is a man let me put a pin in that and say, because there are some folks, today and tomorrow and the rest of this week, people are going to celebrate him, but it won't be long before there will be those who want to try to analyze, his contribution. And one thing we know for sure is that from where we started, or at least let's not say from where we started, but from where Reverend Jackson picks up the baton to where we are now, we can measure his impact. We can measure it. We know what changed. And when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you can't talk about that without you talking about Reverend Jackson and his economic justice fight for us, because he forced corporations to the table to deal with black people. He forced more black and other board members to Fortune 500 companies. I know, I was there. Again, I was little, I was young, but I remember them holding Coca-Cola and other companies accountable for not having the board members or not having, the proper supplier diversity. I mean, all of that. I remember him talking about that. And a lot of what has been rolled back in this moment, it's things that Reverend Jackson fought for. So why don't you talk a little bit about your experiences and just knowing that was the work that he was so heavily focused on?
Well, one thing I've unfortunately have been hearing on the news this week, people, the corporate and legacy media can't help but be negative at some points. And so for every good thing they say, they come up with something else. Well, he and Dr. King didn't really get along in the end. Well, maybe not. I would challenge that. They were both young men. But on April 3rd, Dr. King called Jesse Jackson's name. And he was doing a call and response with Jesse Jackson around the economic boycott of one of the companies they were talking to. I think it was either Seal Test or A&P. It might have been A&P.
I think A&P.
A&P. So Dr. King would not have done that if he did not believe in the work that Reverend Jackson was doing in that regard. And so, of course, after Dr. King's martyrdom, after his crucifixion, Reverend Jackson continued with that work. And it made quite a difference. We're doing something with the Target boycott, and that's a good sign. And we should continue that. But we got to step it up, because at that time, they were knocking a whole lot of folks off, a whole lot of corporations who wouldn't hire us, who wouldn't treat us right. And the corporations would fear Reverend Jackson. Oh, here he comes. He's going to try to get something for us. But he was trying to get something for all of us. And, sometimes we don't want to do those things anymore because we want to go along to get along. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be popular. No one really wants to carry the cross, but he carried it even when he knew it would be used to villainize him, because he saw the bigger picture. And you're right, Tamika, we have the receipts from that, no pun intended. I think in our struggle, we all have to figure out ways to do work that is scientifically measurable. And his was, from the economic movement to voting rights. No human being has ever registered more voters than the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
That's right.
And the Democratic Party, now taken over by a consultant class, doesn't believe in those strategies anymore. But those are the strategies that ultimately will win. I was at a book signing with Howard Bryant the other week. He's got the new book, Kings and Pawns, about the conflict that existed between Jackie Robinson and Paul Robeson. And even he was saying, by the end of Jackie Robinson's life, everybody was sick of him. He was everywhere. He was doing everything. And even some of our own people, we get to a point where Mice and Tamika and Mark, they're too visible. We always see them doing stuff. We don't want to hear nothing from them no more. But who are you going to hear from?
Exactly.
What are you going to do? And we're actually not here. We all want to be loved,
Mm-hmm.
but we aren't just here to make everybody comfortable. We're here to disturb
Mm.
those who are too comfortable.
That's right.
And so, I think that we have a lot to learn from the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Some of us want to reinvent wheels. We don't need to. The blueprint is there. The gospel has been written. We had the gospel of Christ in Dr. King, and we have the gospel of one of his apostles, whether you want to call him a Paul or a Peter, and Reverend Jesse Jackson, as well as others. And we, as I said, we're celebrating the release of Reverend James Lawson's book. Folks, we need to read,
Mm-hmm.
need to understand. We're not going to make it if we don't. And Reverend Jackson used to always say, it's morning time, when morning comes. And he was talking about how there may be sorrow, but joy cometh in the morning. He saw his morning this week.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to see ours and wake up one morning and see him again, we better find a way to finish the work that he carried on from Dr. King.
Yeah, I say that all the time. You know, me and Tamika, we have a saying that there is no such thing as a perfect leader, right?
No.
But when you look at the legacy of, Reverend Jackson and what he accomplished, and the amount of years that he gave to fighting for black people, to speaking on behalf of black people, the shots that he's taken from his own people, and it's disheartening sometimes. Disheartening because, when you look at the legacy and you look at how much he sacrificed and how much he took on his back, and times when it wasn't good and your own people turn your back and you constantly still fighting, and then at 81 years old, this is your legacy, and then you have people who have never done anything for anybody, who will literally critique it and say what somebody didn't do and what they don't deserve. Is disheartening, because actually being in a position to where you're seen as a leader, where you're fighting for your people and everything that you do is for the betterment of the people. No, we might not always get it right, and you might make a mistake. People critique, people have criticisms, and some of them are legit. But to attempt to act as if Jesse Jackson did not fight on behalf of our people and make so much headway and do so many things that make us able to do and live in the way that we do today, to act like that didn't happen is just flabbergasting to me. Like, I don't even understand those conversations, and I no longer have them. And I say that about all of our leaders. I don't agree with everything that none of our leaders have done. And you can point out, and you might have this and that has happened, but to act like people who've actually fought for us and been on the front line, and when you look in the history books record what they've done, the level of sacrifice is given, it's just, it's unreal.
Sacrifice. Let me say, Mark, as we get ready to close, so we talked about the serious stuff, but there's some funny things also that I remember, and I just want to join you first in saying that to Reverend Jackson's family. I won't go into naming everybody because I know I'll forget one of my brothers and sisters, but to the entire family, my heart goes out to you. I know that you all were there to sit near him and you knew the day was coming, but like the rest of us, it's still shocking. It's still painful. So my condolences to all of you who are under the care and leadership of the great Jackie Jackson, okay? Be clear of who the queen is of his castle. And I was just thinking in all of these memories that when I was a little girl, Santita Jackson, which is Reverend Jackson's oldest child, is that correct?
Correct.
His oldest daughter, used to give me singing lessons at her apartment. My mother used to take me on Saturdays after the rally to Santita's house in New York, and she used to give me singing lessons. Like, that's how far my relationship goes back with Reverend Jackson's family. But a funny story, because you sent me a picture that reminded me, and then Chairman Rosalind Brock, who is the chairman emeritus of the NAACP, she sent me a picture that tied the two things like a bow. So the picture that Rosalind sent me was of the Women's March. I took a picture with Reverend Jackson and Rosalind at the Women's March. And I had that day, that picture, at that time, everything was cool. But later on, the program, there were no male speakers with the exception of Mysonne and Jasiri X, who did some entertainment.
No, we actually did a spoken word. And we accompanied Aja.
Right.
So, it was me, Jasiri, and Aja.
And Aja, right. So Aja was the main person who gave a spoken word, and then Jasiri and Mysonne were there. But there were no male participants on the program. And so Reverend Jackson walks up to the stage, and I can spot him from a mile away. I know what he's getting ready to do. And that day I told him, I said, Reverend Jackson, you can't speak today because, it's just everybody's going to want to speak, all the men. And so he was like, what? But anyway, he respected it and he did not speak on the program. But I could tell every time I would see him after that. So now that picture is taken the day that it happened. And then for all of these years, every time I would see him, he was still nice to me. But I know that he was not happy with me for not allowing him to speak that day with all those people, okay? All those people, millions of people watching all over the world. And the picture you sent me is sort of the culmination, if you will. It ties the bow on it because that was when you made me sit down with him to talk about whatever. And you could see he's looking at me like, yeah, what was the problem? And I was explaining myself to him in Selma, Alabama. You took that picture, and that was the first time in a few years, maybe about 2 years, that he and I had a really good conversation after I didn't let him speak on the program at the Women's March. And I know some people will say, well, why not? Because he's an icon and all of that. But it was just the rules were the rules. And, he didn't follow nobody's rules too much, okay? He walked up into places and told people what they were going to do, why they were going to do it, and it was always purposeful. So, I those are the types of things, the stories that you don't really get to share, but it's important. It was so good for me to see those two pictures today and remember where we started and then where you brought us to, because you was like, we're not going to continue this. This is dead. It's over with. It happened. And I believe that you explained to him, like, Reverend, it was the women's program, right?
Well, it's another little part of that. When you denied him.
Don't say I denied him.
When you denied him.
No, and it was right. There were no men on the program. I wasn't on the program. We were there in support.
That's right.
And I'll quote his own daughter, Santita. We had Claudette Colvin's memorial service about a week ago, 10 days ago. And she said, my father can't speak. He has Parkinson's, but if he could, he'd be here trying to preach to you.
Yeah.
Reverend Jackson would show up and just take over church service. He could do that.
He said he ain't follow unjust rules.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what it was. I have a million stories about that. Just side note, Ben Hooks was his nemesis in that regard. Ben Hooks, former president of NAACP.
Yeah.
When Jesse would walk in, don't let him near this. So,
but that's how Tamika was, because we was on the stage and I was the security, and I'll never forget. Yeah. And she kept saying, she said,
he was pacing.
She said, "My listen to me."
And it says a lot about Tamika. Y'all, Tamika had that's why Tamika's a leader. She had the temerity.
Yeah.
Now, a whole lot of his peers and older people always had to come, and then they were mad forever. Yeah. Tamika said no. So he leaves the stage and comes straight to me. Now, in that moment, there was a role shift. Yeah. He was the adolescent, and Tamika and I were the parents. Mark, so he can't. His mother wouldn't let him speak. Mark, tell Tamika let me speak. Why won't she let me speak? So it was my job to go change her mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, Reverend, no, man, this is not our day. And he couldn't get it. He just couldn't get it.
Yeah, he
And
wasn't
so I
with
spent
that.
a lot of time with him after that because he just wouldn't let it go.
No, he
And it was
wouldn't.
the
I
Women's
told you he
March.
was acting a little different towards me. Like, hey,
Yeah,
how
it
you
was the
doing?
Women's March.
Yeah.
And so finally, we did have that kind of relationship. There was advice he gave me, and there was advice gave him. And surprisingly, I didn't think he would always listen to me, but he did.
Yep.
Everything I said to him, and he listened, and it wasn't always comfortable, but he would listen. And I think he respected that. And so when you came to Selma, we were in the same space. I said, "Hey man, here's Tamika. Let's talk."
But if you
And I
look at the
walked.
picture, you can see.
The tension
I'm
of it.
telling him something.
Yeah.
Like, this was the women's program. I had been in meetings, Reverend Jackson. You know, them people I told, we promised.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Reverend Sharpton would have been my direct next in line. Like, before even saying, okay, I could bring Reverend Jackson to speak, my mentor, the person who raised me in the movement, where was he? Like, how can you can't just anyway? We would have just been out of control. Because if that's the case,
Then Mark got to go.
well, by the way, right? Because Mark is also my mentor, right? Look. But no. But if that's the case, and this is for real, remember the co-chair of the march was what's the sister Gloria Steinem
Right.
and Harry Belafonte. So if you was gonna have a man speak, go get the man who allowed his office to be used. The money ran through the bank account and all of that. Give so much love to Carmen Perez for getting Mr. B to do that. So Reverend Jackson, you can't speak today, but I'm glad you fixed it, Mark, because I wouldn't have been right with myself if all of these years. I mean, that's been so many years ago. We done laughed, joked, and he and I have hugged and loved on one another since then. That's a thing of the past. But imagine, that's what you said is so important. And we're going to close on this. Mend the wounds. Mend the wounds in the movement. Because he would have passed today if Mark did not say, y'all going to fix this. He would have passed, and I would have been sitting and holding something. And guess what? I have that with some other people in the movement, and I need to preach to myself. And by the way, some of them have gone on that I can't fix it. One person that I had no hard feelings, nothing. It was nothing but love, and I spent time with right before her death, and just the love and support that I received from this woman today. I have been mourning again, thinking about Hazel and Dukes, my Dukes. But I'm so happy to know that Reverend Jackson, that Reverend Jackson and my Dukes will join one another. They together right now, and they have so many children that they raised. And we're all carrying the torch and trying to do the work that they left us with. So God bless them. Long live Reverend Jesse Jackson, and long live my Dukes, because I know they somewhere fussing about Trump right now. They cussing Trump down from heaven.
Yeah. And as African people, we will call on their spirits, we'll call on their ancestry to empower us in this fight. And we pray that God dispatches their shoulders so that we can stand upon them. I appreciate you both, y'all. I'm getting to the age where I'm standing on the banks of Jordan just watching the ships go by. I'm losing a lot of people. So, folks, yes, Tamika's right. We need to mend because we don't know how much time we have left. And I'll say in Reverend Jackson's defense, people accused him, even at the Women's March, going to the mic, going to the camera. But Reverend Jackson understood. And we're seeing it today. We don't have media anymore other than what we're doing right here. And so every minute there was a media opportunity, he used it for our people. Some folks thought he was using it for himself, but he wasn't. He was using it for us. And we may not have that luxury any longer. So now is the hour to come together. And now is the hour for all of us to get a little bit closer in his memory.
Yep. And he would have had something to say now, Doc. He was going to get up there on that microphone and talk to them women real good. So,
Well, like I said, there were a bunch of preachers that didn't want him to go to the Main Man March. Farrakhan's going to turn everybody into a Muslim. No. And I went to Reverend Jackson. I knew that pressure was on him. I said, Reverend, and I'm not even 30 at that point. I'm not even 30 years old yet, if you can believe that. I said, Reverend, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you have to come to the Million Man March and you have to speak. This is bigger than all of us. And what you will say not only will be important, but I said, anybody, it's pretty clear, anybody who doesn't come is not going to be as relevant as they were anymore.
Wow.
And we both went to the airport. We got on separate planes. And I think we still, I don't even know we all had cell phones then. We think most of us still had pages. So my page is going off. And it's Reverend Sharpton.
You call him too.
Mark, what did you say to him? He coming now. I said, well, I told him, this is too important to ignore. And sure enough, in his way, because we have to remember one of his teachers and partners and a mentor to us all, whose name isn't called enough, was Dr. Ron Walters, the political scientist at Howard University, the greatest political scientist since Du Bois. And so they came up with the voting rights plan. They came up with the voter registration plan to register millions of voters at every turn. And they talked about, what are we going to say at the Million Man March? And when he came there and said, what? He asked us, what can a million men do? We need to go back. And even Minister Farrakhan said that was the greatest speech of the day. And so,
what can a million men do?
What can a million men do? And so, Mike, as we talk about million kings and doing something with men, we need to dust that one off too. People talk about the Democratic Convention speeches, and those were great. But we need to dust off what can a million men do, because he was talking to a million men, but he was talking to every single individual male under the sound of our voices.
I'm ready.
And so we're thankful to him. My heart is heavy. Yeah. Y'all stay close to me, because I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself.
Yeah, you're gonna be all right. It's on you now. You are him. I asked Bishop Leah Daughtry to come to a meeting with me that was pretty important this week, and she said to me that it was just an interesting space for her, because under normal circumstances she would have been with Alexis Herman in those environments, taking counsel from Alexis Herman. And for people who don't know who Alexis Herman is, you should go and look her up. She's also a leader. She worked for President Clinton, and she's a great strategist. Right, so she was a Secretary of Labor. She was an amazing strategist as well. And so I looked at her and said, you are now the Alexis Herman, right? Because now people are going to depend on you. And there are many who are dependent on me and depending on different people, because those before us have gone on. And so, Mark, I have to say to you today that, when you say, what am I going to do? Just keep picking up the phone, because so many of us are calling on you now to get the advice that we would have received from your predecessors. So you have taken on, you got the torch, brother. Carry it.
You got the juice now, Mark.
That's right. But you can't speak at the women's event. I'm going to tell you right now. I love you, Mark.
We love you, King.
Love you both. Thank you. Long live the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Yes,
Long live Reverend Jackson.
Yes. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you all.
All right, friends have joined. You know us with our friends. We love to have folks on this show who are our friends that are doing really, 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 really big things. And today we've been joined by someone, I don't even know how she got here, because, sometimes they don't want to talk to us. They'd be like, this might be
a little controversial. I'm the crime boss. You know what I'm saying?
You're the crime boss. That's right. Afia Ata-Mensah. Is it like that, or am I making it too hard?
No, you rolls off the tongue.
Okay.
Afia Ata-Mensah.
Ata-Mensah. Okay, cool. Afia Ata-Mensah, who is my dear sister, is the New York City Chief Equity Officer and the Commissioner on New York City's Office of Equity and Racial Justice. She's also an activist, a strategist, an organizer, and a lawyer. And quite frankly, a Black woman who is for the Black people plus a whole lot of other people. And I'm so excited for you to join us here today. The last time we sat together, you were working on the campaign, and now you are actually working for the mayor's office, a Black person who is working in a very senior commissioner level for Mayor Zoran Mamdani, and we're excited about what you're doing. You're doing a hard, heavy lifting on racial justice over there.
Let's just say it is a labor of love.
But it's labor.
But it's labor. It's absolutely labor.
Yeah, work is supposed to be labor. So but I can imagine that being in an administration that unfortunately, no matter how different Mayor Mamdani is, and we all know, I mean, I think, which we're going to talk about where you came from professionally and how you decided to dedicate so much of your life to Mamdani's campaign, because you guys gave up every bit of your lives. I know it was extensive. It wasn't like a regular campaign because he wasn't a regular candidate. 33 years old at the time, Arab, which never happened, progressive, anti all kind of things. I mean, that is unheard of. And so the type of work that it took to get him across the finish line with so many communities required that you all gave up so much of yourselves. And first of all, thank you for doing that. I know the hurdles and the hard times, but this is a historically racist city. That's just the truth. You ain't saying it. I'm saying it. It just is. And so when you go to be even, I don't care who you are, you could be the most progressive, forward-thinking, inclusive person. You are moving into City Hall, which has racist structures that exist just by the nature of systemic issues that have been there since forever and forevermore. And we have watched multiple administrations work to break those things down. And now you guys have to do a lot of work. So being in the racial justice area has to be a mammoth task, because you're looking at something that if it was up to a whole bunch of people around the city, state, and the country, you would this position wouldn't even exist, or these two positions wouldn't even exist. So how does that feel? That's big.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me.
Sure.
It's just amazing to be sitting with you two folks who I deeply respect and admire for your work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say like this, it is absolutely a Herculean task, right? Like, this is not for the weak. I move with this intention because it's important and we need to have it done. But listen, some of the credit has to go to New Yorkers, right? Like,
right.
This office was created because in 2022, New Yorkers came to the ballot box for a charter amendment specifically to tackle issues of equity and racial justice, and to say that this office, the Mayor's Office for Equity and Racial Justice, should be created, and that the Commission Corps should be created as a watchdog to make sure that there are commitments made in regards to racial equity and equity generally for the city. And so this is the will of New Yorkers who are coming together and said, by majority in 2022, this needs to happen. This office was created in 2023, and I am the second person to hold this role. All that being said, it is Herculean, mammoth, as you said, in nature, because this is not about intention. If it was about good intention, we can believe that things would have been shifted in other administrations and progress was made. But these are about structures, as you named it, right? They're real structures and laws that have created hurdles on way too many New Yorkers for too long. And we both have to see it, right, call it out, and then do the shifting that needs to happen to make sure that government is meeting its people in the way that is accessible and real. And that's really what this is about through equity, that we are being clear that because of both systemic and current realities, hurdles have been enacted upon different segments of communities.
Wow.
And it is the job of government, right, to meet the needs of its people. And what this demand is about is making sure that all of the city agencies are furthering this to make sure that our tax dollars are well at work serving the very communities in the manners of which it is needed. So this ain't for the, for the faint of heart. This is a mayor, to your point, said we could do big, bold things, particularly at a time where trust in government has atrophied.
Absolutely.
For a host of reasons. So it's not just enough to have intention. There has to be work. There's going to be struggle. It wasn't all built in a day. It's not going to be reconstructed in an administration. But our job is to do as much as we can in the time we have there. So I am humbled by the opportunity, and also at all of the hurdles.
Yes.
And look forward to working with folks to make these shifts that we need to make, to be pushed to do it, right? To continue to be pushed to do it, to be held in accountability, hopefully in love too. I don't believe the two are incongruent.
That's right.
But to move this stuff forward, because it's going to take all of us New Yorkers to do it. It's going to take an outpouring of support across the country so that New York can remain a model, you know. You named a couple of things I am. I am an unabashed New Yorker, so I think we are the center of the known universe.
That's right.
And that we should be a model for how things could and should move forward in an equitable way, because equity, affordability without equity is futile.
Right. That's
It loses its meaning if we do one without the other.
Yeah. Leave it to my son.
Like, do you feel pressure? Because, you know, I'm very excited about this administration. I'm very excited about the possibilities. I'm watching the mayor just hit the ground running, you know, trying to actually do the things he said during the campaign. You knowing how passionate you are, how qualified you are, how connected to our communities you are. And, you know, they're going to say, well, she's going to do it. She has to do it. So do you feel pressure?
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. So I'll say a few things, right? As an organizer, I am clear that there's no one person, right? That this has to be part of a collective, ongoing, because even when we make progress, right, there is an onslaught to try and take us back. So the pressure I feel is in many steads, right? I feel pressure as an individual who wants to be a part of showing that government can and should serve its people. Unapologetically, it should make people's day-to-day lives better. Like public servants and our North Star is, how do we make people's lives better? How do we make this work better? How do we make the no's that we initially get as short, what would my daughter say, side quests on a way to a yes, right? And clearly, again, I'll say, as you're going to hear me say this again and again, as an organizer, I'm not a martyr, right? I do this work because I want to see things change in our lifetime. Right? There are a lot of reasons I do it, but me, right? I want better for this city that I love. I want my kids and your kids and our grandkids to have a better city. I want people to live in dignity. I don't want people leaving New York because they say I can't afford it, or it's too hard to live here anymore, or the systems that were supposed to empower me were turned against me. I want to stem that outward migration of folks leaving New York. If you want to move to New York because you want to be close to your family, fine. But I don't want anyone pushed out of New York. Right? I don't want communities that have made different neighborhoods in New York global destinations having to move. Right? And so that there's a pressure that comes with that. And then, you know, in Black communities, I will say, you know, we are rightfully vocal, and people will let you know.
And apprehensive.
Right.
Because let me tell you, I know that there are people, I tell folks all the time, people like simple information, right? They got enough complicated stuff. It's complex issues all around them they're trying to deal with, trying to figure out how to pay it, what to do, how to handle, how to go, how to come. So when you tell me you're the commissioner on racial justice and all this, they want to know, what does that mean for my life? Like, should I care about this, or is this just some big title that's going to be about, like, you know, some big thing that doesn't impact Monday to Sunday to Monday, Sunday to Saturday. I got to get here, come back, eat food, park, and I need to know if your position handles those things. Now, I know the answer, but I would love for you to make it clear to folks so they can understand how it comes down to, like, the nitty gritty, as they say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So first and foremost, this office is seen as being able to look across other agencies, right? There have been many equity officers in different agencies, but it makes sense to be rowing in the right direction together. So part of this was created to go across so there's no siloization. But to, like, the tangible, how does this make my life better? It is coordinating all of the different plans that the different agencies have and saying, this is the way that the city is going to move forward, both in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. And then what that looks like is, I can give examples now of things like Men Teach, right? A program that is amazing. It encourages men, particularly men of color, to become teachers, right? Based on the data that we know that if you have more men of color teachers, they have impact on young boys, Black, Latino, and Asian, and that has tangible benefits for New Yorkers. And so it is an amalgamation of programs coming together and saying, like, we have to actually look at how city government focuses with the lens of equity, so that we're ensuring that these programs that roll out are done in a way of intention. as I said, this office was created in 2023 coming out of a pandemic recovery. And at that time, a charge was heavily based on, rightfully so, like making sure that recovery efforts are evenly distributed. We came out of snowstorms traditionally, not in this administration, but in previous administrations, we know that outer boroughs, especially in different neighborhoods, didn't get the same type of access to sanitation services and snow removal, which made their day-to-day difficult. Like they couldn't even get to work because they still digging out in Sheepshead Bay or in East New York, while meanwhile, like the Upper East Side is clean. So
people still pissed off, just so you know.
Better, right? Day by day, we get better. Day by day, we get better. But so those are how do we take like this macro idea, to your point, of equity and racial justice and make sure it impacts people's day-to-day lives? It is ensuring that the wheels of government that we have right now are acting in a way that is conducive to allow people to live in dignity, to allow them to get to work. Whether that's something as small as making sure that streets are cleared equally, that sanitation is done equally, that access to health services are done equally, all those different things that allow people to actually receive government in a way that is like dignified and right.
Because there are people who would say, now you know us, we talk. This is the show where we say all the things.
Okay.
And I can imagine someone saying, you're right, equal, because equally downtown, the garbage was there for too long. The snow was still blocking the entrances for too long. So it was equally equally piss people off. But I do understand what you're saying. That's sarcasm. Well, it's not, but it is. But when we're talking about looking at all the agencies and you explain through a sanitation lens, that wasn't something that I would have even thought about, to say that there has to be equal services for all communities. I just thought that was a thing. So for you to even mention that, it means that at some point there wasn't, or it was not what it should be.
Yeah, I would say people's lived experiences would tell you it's not what it should be. My mom, I'm a second generation New Yorker. My mom was born in Harlem Hospital, and stories ad nauseum, right, about what it's been in different times and iterations. So part of this is making sure that, as I said, we continue with the sanitation, like that it's equal. And I would even push a little further if we think about, right, we've been talking about this in the lens of racial justice, which is right. But also we think of an equity lens. To your point, when snow or other things aren't remediated and block access to passageway, our differently abled brothers and sisters, right, are disproportionately impacted. So we have to have a full mindset of how what we think the day-to-day things have impacts on people's ability to get around.
Kids can't get into the schools, 100%. The black ice, the whole thing. Yeah, no, I understand. So we're talking about education, we're talking about transportation. Sanitation comes under transportation, or is that its own?
Its own.
So DOT and then Department of Sanitation. Okay. And then that would be health issues, housing.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Right? So, and this is just within the city. Because
that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of agencies.
My son was up. That's a good question. Do you feel pressure?
Yeah. No. So, but just listening to you and understanding all of those things, I know for me, as I do work, I try to hone in on one or two things that I want to be personally focused on. You know, you have a big job. Are there one or two things that you're saying, in this position right now, these are the things that I want to focus on, that I want to make major change, that I want to impact, like it's going to be part of the legacy that I leave when I'm out of this position and I moved on?
So I appreciate the question. I'd say two things. One, right now we are laser focused on making sure to see through the mayor's commitment that the plan is released within the first 100 days of office, right? That's April 10th. So that is a priority, right? That the mayor has said this. It is not whether, it is when, and it is before April 10th. And then I'd say the second piece is I'd love to come back, because once that plan is released, and then there's a full understanding of all the different recommendations, I'd love to be able to come back and say, these are our priorities.
Wow.
So it's a twofer.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. I mean,
because I know you're going to do great things. And I just want to hear, like I was watching a documentary on Barbara Lee yesterday. And they were talking about when she was the sole person that voted against the war after 9/11, and she was criticized and all things, and then how people started to get behind her, and it created her legacy. Like, we all have different moments and things that create our legacy. And Obama wanted Obamacare, and he wanted first, certain things. So I just wanted just to hear your focus going in, but it makes sense, because you gotta get the agenda then, and then at that point you can say, this is exactly where I want to put all my energy.
Yeah, because we don't, like you said, one administration, which you all are going to have two.
Yes.
And so by the second one, but then the problem with that is that you're going to be a deputy mayor, so you won't be, you'll no longer be a commissioner. So then, I don't know, hopefully it will still be under your portfolio it just has to be, like, what are we talking about here?
I will say that there is a lot of work to move. And it has to move at all levels.
And it has to move at all levels. There was no better person to be chosen, just because of your background, which is what I want to get into. One thing I love about this administration, my son joked about being the crime boss, and I can't say you thought it was funny, but you have to laugh to keep from crying sometimes about the racism and the attacks that we receive. I didn't think it was funny at all. The whole time I was upset, I was hurt. The way they put not just him, but many of us in the paper, Zakia Ansari was improperly called a cop killer. I mean, this was not, and this everybody's like, come on, you know what the New York Post does, but it does not feel good when you're at the center of these things, because it has implications. You're online, your name is being trashed or whatever. So I don't think it's funny at all. And when I think about what is to come for you, right? And knowing, one, where you come from, you're an activist, it's in your bones, it's who you've always been. And I appreciate that this administration has so many people like you on different levels, whether it's transition to inside of government. They have so many people, but I know the storms that are coming that you have not yet reached. And I think that your background prepares you for that because you're used to it. Do you feel that what I'm saying is true, or you're like, no, these are different kinds of attacks?
Well, I'll say a few things. I agree 100% that these attacks are not funny, right? And I understand the inclination to laugh to keep from crying, but they are dangerous, right? One, the misinformation about what the work that you, my son, have done, that you've done, Tamika, and others, is dangerous. And it seeks to create, a fear of folks coming into movement work, right? And we know, you're supposed to come into movement with a love, right? A love for people, a love for wanting to see things better. And the visceral reactions and the hatred are real and have had impact. They have emotional impact, right? They have safety impact. They have financial impact.
Absolutely.
And so I don't for a moment want to dismiss what that looks like and what it means, particularly now when we have different levels of violence perpetrated against people because of misinformation that is put out. And so losing
Minnesota is one of those places
Absolutely.
where we saw that happen. Yeah.
And so it is no small thing. And I would say, throughout the course of the campaign, we saw the mayor targeted. The mayor is still targeted. And it is unfortunate and wrong. And that's why I continue to lift up, in times of darkness, other New Yorkers, right? It may sound crazy. We know that, sometimes New Yorkers, we could be our best cheerleader and at times our most vocal opponent. But when asked, New Yorkers went to the ballot and chose a charter amendment for issues of equity and racial justice. When they had an opportunity, they chose a mayor who had an agenda that was about hope and opportunity for all New Yorkers. And so I continue to believe that we have to do the work to say it is okay to come out for hope and opportunity. It is okay to understand that opportunity for one does not mean at the expense of others. And that we have to have a restructuring of how government operates to make sure that it works for all of us. And so lifting those things up, saying it and doing the work, unfortunately comes with a target in this time that we're in. I don't look forward to it. I look to be hopefully surrounded by folks who are joining this fight because they are impacted and realize that it has real impact for themselves and their loved ones in their community. But to act as if it's not out there would just be untrue. And so I don't believe that we get into movement work to hide things from the people. Folks who are organizing and advocating do it at times at their own personal jeopardy because they have a faith about something that moves on before and after them.
Mm. That was a good answer.
That was good. That girl good. That girl
Yeah.
She good. So in this first 2 weeks that you've had this position,
This is week the full. Last week was my full first week, so we on day 7.
Day 7.
Day
So,
7.
my
as you enter into your second week of the position, is there anything that that shocks you about this government? Because you're not like a government person. You're an activist. You've been in the streets and lawyer, so you've seen it from. Is there anything that you're looking like, wow, this is a lot different than I anticipated?
I didn't know how big, how many government employees there are, city workers. There are a lot. So I'm learning about that. I'm learning new agencies.
That you didn't even know
I
existed.
did not know existed.
And they supposed to be doing stuff for us. And they might be.
They
but
might
we just
be,
didn't
but
know.
we don't know. So I do want to, to continue with a little piece of hope and opportunity. I do want to lift up the civil servants, the public servants, the workers who, part of their job is to go, if they're doing it right, you go day to day without knowing they existed, because that means your day wasn't impacted.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
And I'm learning a lot. I need y'all to keep me covered in prayer.
All the time.
I'm seeing a whole
And
bunch.
you're so smart, but you got to learn. It's a different learning curve.
It's a different learning curve.
And you're working for a mayor who is super smart. This man, I watched him we went to a meeting with him a few, this might have been the meeting before he took office. So he had already won, but it was in that little transition period. He came to a meeting with the crisis management systems leadership, which is, for people who don't know, that is the civilians that do violence prevention work in New York City, in New York. And so he walks into the meeting, he sits down. Now we have presentations. We've got decks with details, every single thing about how much is spent, how much more we would need, and not we, because Until Freedom don't get a dime. I've never received a dime, and I helped to start the crisis management system in 2014. I'm one of the founders, but I've always been working nationally. So once it got up and rolling and I did what I needed to do to help them, I left and was doing a whole bunch of things, as you know, around the nation. And so I never open a violence prevention site or any of that. But nonetheless, I say we because it is my community. And so we have all these plans and decks, and want him to understand the details, what the crisis management system is, how it started, what the goals are, who are the people that work within it. We just had 500, and that's not even that's like 25% of the people who work within this system. People formerly incarcerated, mothers, who've lost their children. I mean, we got all the decks with the stuff. And he comes in, he sits down, and we spread out all this paper and all this whiteboard stuff. And he says, so let me start. The man knew almost all of the stuff that was in the deck, Sophia. He just sat down and started being like, and so you all only work 9 to 5. How does that work? Or 8 hours a day, because people move that around. He said, so you're saying you need 24 hours. We have to try to figure that out if it's possible, phases. He knew how many sites. Some stuff was given to him. Obviously, Erica Ford had worked on making sure he was prepared. But you can tell the level of detail that he himself, especially as a New York State Assembly member, had been into the weeds to learn it. And whatever you tell him at 12 o'clock, at 5 and 6 o'clock, he's saying it like he knows it, right? That's very powerful. Because everybody's brain, but I guess that's a 34-year-old's brain. Because I remember when mine used to work like that. It don't work like that anymore, And I am, and so now that means everybody around him, you guys have to be smart and quick. Because what's the point if he knows things and you can't teach him or tell him anything? So you're on a different learning curve.
Listen, we are on, so one, yes to what you said about the mayor. I think part of what you are are articulating for folks is a mayor who is hyper focused on how these important programs and policies impact people's lives.
Yeah.
Right. And so it requires a level of detail and understanding so that when they're with like the different CMS providers, it can get right to the meat of how do we support these programs? Like what are the hurdles that we need to.
That's right. That's what
right?
he said.
So
that's what he said.
yeah.
He said, I know all that stuff. So now tell me what's the problem.
Right. How do we get into it? And so what it requires, to your point, is are people at all levels, the deputy mayor level, the commissioner level, the advisors, the policy analysts who are similarly locked in and want to get to the heart of the matter and figure things out. So it is both, it has been a journey. It is, amazing learning curve. And it is, to my son, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Simple.
Right. Right. I too am no longer 34. And a lot is required because a lot is expected.
Yeah. Tell us your background. Where did you come from? How did they find you to say, come work with us on the campaign?
So, before joining the campaign, I was working at an organization called Community Change as their chief of programs, kind of overseeing the issue campaigns, electoral campaigns, policy. And that, for me, came out of my background of serving as the executive director of a base building organization here in New York, Community Voices Heard. And so I had the privilege through my time at Community Change of going across the country to provide support and strategy to community-based organizations across the country in Mississippi, in Louisiana, Michigan, and New Mexico, a bunch of places in between. And, had some mutual friends who have been steadfast early supporters of the mayor who called and said, Fia, we need you to come in. We'd love for you to think about what it would look like to help and do the politics for this campaign. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was an opportunity for a few things. One, to finally be in New York, mostly as opposed to traveling all the time, but also to be a part of a campaign that I felt was inspiring, that was important, that was rooted in trying to make a city I love better for myself, for my family, and where I thought there was a real role to play to counter any narrative about a lack of understanding of issues of race and how it plays into the, policy and politics, gender and all the different confluence of different identities that we know that folks are steeped in. And so, it was as you said, robust campaign that had a lot of attention. And I had some good folks who took me aside after who said, we need you to come in.
Yeah.
We need you to come in.
Like me. I texted, called, sent a bird, told other people, conspired with people. Afia has to stay.
So, yeah, that's part of the pressure campaign you talk about, my son. That's
always pressure.
Pressure. So, listen, it was a confluence of a lot of different pieces of, I talk about my organizer background, but I started at the Legal Aid Society, right? And so part of my my movement from lawyer to organizer was just, frankly, based on a power assessment of frustration of doing important work, but just, too many times seeing judges go a certain way, or by the time we won a case, it felt like almost we lost the case because a bunch of the plaintiffs either moved on, or just a host of different pieces. And so the idea of organizing, of everyday people coming together and doing super ordinary things for the love of themselves and their families deeply shaped me. So that idea of organizing, of everyday people coming together to do things that change their lives and change the lives of a lot of people has centered me. I think that it's exciting to have a lot of movement people coming into government who are humble and who are learning, but who have an unapologetic North Star of how to make people's lives better, how to ensure that the affordability agenda of fast and free buses, of free child care, of rent freeze, how to make sure it happens, and how to hopefully change the course of what is possible for city government.
So, I asked the hard question.
Okay.
So first I want to know, what was the first meeting like? Before I met the mayor, I just watched him, and I was like, he's, I like the things he's saying, but when I got into the room with him and we started to engage, I was just immediately just taken by this level of authenticity that he has. Like when he's talking to you, you can tell that he's authentically having a conversation with you. He's listening intently. He is really taking in everything you say. And then probably 2 days later after this, he was on the float on 125th Street, right? And I'm walking down the block, just walking on the side. And he sees me, and he salutes me like across the street. And just from that interaction, it just showed how personal he is and how intentional he is. So I want to know, like, how was your first interaction with him?
Yeah, I'd say a few of those things resonate with me. The intention, the both like urgency, but also humility is something that stuck with me. And then, frankly, I'll say the excitement of both the folks who were already on the campaign, who were just amazing and believers, and the excitement of, you know, it sounds trite, but it's real, of young people, right? Like one of the, I have 2 kids, and it was one of my daughters who was like, Mom, I really like this Mr. Zoran. Right?
Love that. How old is that baby?
That was the 13-year-old.
Oh, yeah, they love him.
They love him, right?
Yes.
And so to see so many young folks make clear their intention of they want this city to be something that they can be a part of, was particularly moving for me because it was a manifestation of what a lot of us in movement have been talking about for many an election cycle.
Many an election cycle.
So to actually see it happening made clear to me, I was like, this is something I want to be a part of. This is something I hope to be able to shape and to be able to work with people who are just unapologetic about talking about what this vision could look like. And
were you shocked? Like, you gonna say that? Like, y'all saying, we saying that?
I was, I don't think it was shocked. I was refreshed.
When they said, like, there's a genocide happening in Palestine, you didn't go, ooh, we in trouble now.
I think, to my son's point, what we are seeing as part of like this distrust in government of people not saying the thing. And authenticity is a simple word, but it is such a rarity. And people saw, I think, in him both their own hopes and dreams. Different members of community saw something that for them was a first, right? Someone who looked like them, who worshiped in the same way, who may have been from, had family members from the same country that gave some hope, but also someone who could both talk to larger issues, but also make clear the day-to-day needs that so many were grappling with. So it was refreshing where that was just the understanding for that is how we are going to move forward. And even,
Gangster.
Yeah. And even amidst all of that, I am very clear that we are now at the hard part.
Yes, the governing part.
Yes.
Where you can say it, but then you might got to change. You might put like a the and some other words before it. And then, because that's just, and now there are more people that have to be covered in all your communications, all of your intention, all your actions. And we have to be able to understand that. It doesn't mean that things should change, but we have to respect that there's a difference between how you communicate when you're on a campaign trail and how you communicate as mayor and team.
Correct.
Running a city with how many people here? 8, how many?
8, more than,
million?
no, not 7. It's over. It's between 7 and 9 million.
Yeah,
we've lost a little bit of population. So
New York City,
yes, right. And so I'm going to keep
a lot
saying,
of people.
yeah, like a window for the world. Hopefully a model for the nation. But it's not a small thing.
That's right.
So my second part of my question is, so now in this administration, you pretty much are like the conduit to the community, especially the black community. Like when we look,
you've been deputized.
You have been deputized, the HNIC inside this administration. And that comes with a lot because, you know, black people going to challenge you. They're going to say this ain't right. How is that, right? Because I know, because I hear it all the time. Because you work with the man. Why this ain't happening? What? And I'd be like, well, calm down a little bit. And
40 days.
And then when I get the thing, then I tell her, and then she gonna call you. So how is that navigating? Because we know how black people are, and you gonna be in a certain position, and how is that?
So let me say this. While I absolutely understand and respect and deep appreciation for the coalition of different communities and wanting to make sure they have folks they can talk to. The expectation should be that every door is open to every community. And what I mean by that is I am happy to be one of many people who hear directly from impacted communities. And I want to make sure that pressure is equally applied.
That's right. Don't
Feel
just
free.
talk
Don't
to
just
me.
call you.
Call.
Don't
Look.
Because our business is city business.
That's right.
And city business is our business.
That's right.
And so there is no one gatekeeper, nor should there be one gatekeeper.
That's right.
There should be a multitude of people who take our communities as vital and important and integral parts of a strong
I
city.
like that.
And so
That goes
I am
good.
happy to
I
be
know it. I
part
told you.
of an orchestra that is singing or playing the music of equity. But it's got to be an orchestra.
Yeah. In other words, she didn't say this. I'm saying it. Call them white folk over there too and tell them about how you feel, because it's not fair for us to all, which we gonna do it anyway. So I don't think of calling anybody else except you and of course Jamila. Because we are familiar with who we familiar with.
Correct.
You could have been the head of sanitation. For real. You could have been
And we
in
gonna call
transportation. And we're going to call you to talk about
the lunch, in
health
school.
and the school problem. That's just what that's because that's how, well, also access has been so limited for different communities, not just the Black community. I would imagine that there is a person who may be of Latino descent who's listening to this conversation like, oh, I don't have anybody. I don't know who to call. Like, because we've had to fight. This is not a thing. And that's why there were people who challenged the idea, the fact that there was no Black deputy mayor, and there has been a Black deputy mayor since I think before Bloomberg, right? Or maybe Bloomberg, no, Giuliani. In fact, I mean, we're not gonna get you into all of those conversations today, but since Giuliani, there has been a Black deputy mayor. So some of us have an issue with that, and that's okay, because well, not that it's okay that it didn't happen, but it is okay that we have to have a push and pull. There's going to be places where we don't agree, things we have to say, but people, that didn't just happen. Giuliani did not wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm just going to go appoint a Black deputy mayor. That happened because people fought really hard to ensure that we have position, we have access, and that our communities are respected. And so, yeah, if I'm trying to get, some help because somebody was arrested and I think that they may be being done wrong, yeah, I could try to call all these people, but I'm just call you. The same way I called Tiffany Raspberry when she was in the Adams administration. I called Tiffany. She like, what does this? The flowers ain't right on 117th Street. No, what was the thing I called Tiffany about every other week? Rats. And this lady was intergovernmental affairs. She's in Washington, D.C., going to work with people who are, obviously elected officials, big business people. She's meeting with the mayor. And here's Tamika Mallory. I need you to call me back. It's very important. She's like, what happened? Girl, on 126th Street behind the Apollo, there's rats and there's people with needles and there has to be something done. I called her one day complaining about some other issues. Nothing to do with the things that's in her portfolio. But people want, they want it's
comfortability.
But they want you to do that job, but they also want somebody over there to answer the phone call about my particular needs. And to his credit, with all the issues, because I'm an Eric Adams, I have plenty to say about him. You didn't come up here for that. We could call him too and say, Mr. Mayor, this ain't right, that ain't right, and that has to. If you're not doing that, you can't serve this city properly. It's too much going on. You got to be able to pick up the phone. So God bless you.
Yes.
Because I got some stuff. You want my list? I don't.
I will say that constituent services it's what you said. They are
thank you for
very important. I want to encourage people to make sure to press upon and have expectations across the board, because we are absolutely here to serve you.
That's fine.
Right, to make sure that services run well, to get that feedback, right, so that we're clear and get real-time situational awareness of what's happening. Some folks, I'll be included, will help direct people to, we want to make sure it's the Office of Mass Engagement. What are the appropriate
That's
persons?
right. Talk about that. What does that mean?
So it's the recreation of the Community Affairs Unit under the leadership of Tasha Van Auken.
What is it called again?
Office of Mass Engagement.
Okay.
That will engage the masses.
So you can call over there to complain about the rats?
To lift up issues that you are seeing, so that information is spread across agencies, so that we can have an intersectional and clear approach about like where and how. And but all jokes aside too, and you raise this point, Tamika, of like we should make sure that in our communities, Black communities, Latino, Asian American, wherever, that folks understand and have an expectation that folks should be accountable to them. Even if you don't have someone you can name, or you don't have someone on speed dial, that like there's an expectation of folks to be responsive, right? Within reason, all this, but like you should absolutely be saying what's going on in your communities and how it is impacting you and what you need government to do for you.
And if the agencies work properly, then you should be able to call the people locally who are supposed to deal with certain things and it move and not have to be calling you about it. But the rat situation, as you know,
Citywide.
became a super problem that, I'm being funny that I called Tiffany, but it wasn't one rat.
Right.
We're talking about 200 rats on one street. That's a problem that requires like some serious focus from a lot of people. Who do you call if rats are a problem? No, I'm really big on, I don't know if you know this. You may not, as my dear friend. I think I never, maybe you don't know. This is an area that I literally will work for. I don't want to work in government at all. But I would go to work in the mayor's office if somebody put me in the place of helping to figure out about the
rat
rats.
remediation.
That is very serious to me, because I am sure it's not just aesthetics. And, of course, I'm scared lifeless.
Right, but it's public health issue. It's a host of issues.
You're eating the food, you bringing germs around. It's disgusting. I cannot take it. I'm really big on this. They know. I send videos to people every day. Did you see one? It's over there. It's over there. I'm very big on this. And I know a lot of people who are living with it. They running around.
Right.
They can't get. Angela Yee had a whole thing where she couldn't get out her house in the morning. She used to have to, and she lived, Angela Yee living all right. And she used to have to bang her way out, because at the time that she left, remember, she was on air at 6 o'clock in the morning. And so she had to leave at 4:30.
Yeah.
And so it's dark.
Can
out.
you
They
imagine?
still hang,
That's their time,
cannot.
boy. Ooh, that's their time.
So I don't know who is specifically charged with rat remediation, but I can assure you I will come back to you.
No,
with it.
thank
Yeah,
you.
they had a rat czar before. We need another rat
Who
czar.
rats are?
Not me, but somebody, because you have to be willing to like look at them and touch them, and that I ain't into.
You can spot them and report.
I can spot and report, but I ain't getting ready to do no. You're not gonna have me in a room where they put them up on the screen and you see it at different times. How did this conversation go to rats? But leave it to me. And I've told the mayor, he thinks I'm crazy because I have said, you still dealing with rats, right? Don't let the rats get off the. I told L, the chief of staff, hey, she's like, yeah, like what you about to say? I said, L, the rats. Please make sure the agenda. I didn't hear y'all say anything about the rats.
We don't want the rats anywhere near the fast and free buses. We need somebody
No.
on this.
Ooh, that
They
is
can't
so
wait.
good. You're so good. You're amazing, Afia.
Well, we appreciate you and we love you, and we know that you're going to do amazing things, and we're going to be proud of you. And me, the crown boss, I'll be raising my hand.
That's
for you.
right. We look forward
Yes.
to your leadership, and one day you're going to be mayor.
Yes.
I know it for sure. We speaking because it has to be said so that
speak it.
somebody can
You gotta
claim
speak
it
it.
when it happens. You're going to be mayor because that's just who you are to our people.
Yes.
You have been so authentic. You tell us what you can do, what you can't do. Make sure you keep that, and do not let the people, not black people, the people drive you crazy.
Well, it's just been an absolute pleasure and joy to be with you all today. Please continue to, keep me in prayer, hold folks accountable, give me information so I can learn and hear and make sure to be sharing that. I'm excited to serve under this mayor, and I look forward to be part of this larger coalition that will move these pieces forward. So just thank you.
Do we.
Yeah, and you guys, you have to deal with the Donald Trump factor too, the Trump administration. So I would imagine that there is even though you are in government now, but there's still an organized side of you, muscle that you will have to flex to make sure that the people know how to back you up when they start trying to fight you, because they're going to do that. They don't want racial equity in New York City or anywhere else. And when you start saying words like
DEI.
it's a beacon of hope, oh, so now you want that to spread to New Jersey and then Pennsylvania and all the way down to the South. They don't want that. And so we're excited to see it, but we also know the fight is going to require us to stay engaged. And
Absolutely.
so you can depend on us to do that. Thank you,
We
Afia
got you.
Atamenza.
Thank you and thank you.
Thank you. Shout out to the brilliant Afia.
Yeah,
She's
she is
amazing. Like,
She's good.
She that girl's woo. She's sharp, man. You know, just listening to her and just understanding this administration. You know, like I've been excited since this administration started. You know, nothing is perfect, but I just really feel like there's a level of authenticity and there's a real want to do something different, to create for what we want to see in New York. So it was interesting hearing her. Just a breath of fresh air, just seeing someone like her, knowing she's in position and she actually wants to do the work.
Yeah, I'm impressed by, because even talking to us, you know, it only takes one soundbite to get you in the news for 6 weeks, getting in trouble about something that happened on the TMI show. And, you know, we gonna tell it as we feel. But I appreciated how she wasn't doing a spin, but she was just making sure that we didn't put words in her mouth, that her messaging was consistent with what she believes, and that she was professional. And it was I appreciated the way in which she carried the tone. She didn't say, well, I don't agree, or, you know, it wasn't so much that, but she made sure to represent more than just black folks, because that's important, right? Like, these people are not the mayor of black people. We gonna have to, unfortunately, accept that. If we want mayor of black people, we gonna have to figure out who that is and then hire them and put them in position and let them be mayor of black people. She is in the office of the mayor of New York City. And as she said, somewhere between 7 and 9 million people. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot. It's a whole lot.
And it's a lot of work that goes with that. So I appreciate Afia. I know she's passionate, and you can hear that. And she's but she's real, because she's like, oh, this is for real. This is a serious job.
Yeah.
She has 2 jobs.
Yeah.
She's the chief equity officer, but then she is also the commissioner of equity and racial justice. That's 2 different things.
Sounds like a lot.
I should have asked her, did she get 2 different paychecks?
Well, listen. You tell her to loan me something.
That should be about $500,000, and the city don't even pay that.
I need a check.
Oh,
Give me a
please.
check.
Good night.
Give me a check.
Keep going.
For mine, I don't get it today.
Please, God, don't talk about Trump.
No, I was going to talk about Trump.
Oh my God.
I was going to talk
We both
about Trump.
talking about Trump.
No, but I'm not going to talk about Trump. I was.
No, you can.
No, but I'm not, because there's something that's been, I just have to say things how they are. You know, I was going to talk about Trump, and I don't even know how to compare him to Obama, and it has to do with the All-Star game. So I was just talking about, I've seen Obama at the All-Star game, and just seeing how he's just such a class act. You know, everybody that came into contact with him, the way he just has an aura.
He does.
That is just amazing.
He does.
You know,
And there's no perfect leader.
There's no perfect
leader. But he
leader.
definitely, he is not attending games where people are booing him the way that they do Donald Trump.
They're not booing him at all. People are there say, this is my favorite person. And Anthony Edwards, who was the MVP of the game, was just talking about how he wanted to really play good for Obama. He was going to crack him for him, and he said he's my favorite person in the world. So I was going to talk about that, because I just didn't even understand the comparison to them. When people make those comparisons, it's actually just disrespectful. But then I saw LeBron James at the press conference, and the Israeli reporter.
How do you know it was an Israeli?
Because they said it's from the Israeli Times or something. I don't know exactly which paper, but they actually was someone that represented the Israelis, and he was talking. And everyone has the right to their own opinions. You have your own political stances, and we all have different political stances, and saying that you support Israel.
He didn't say he support Israel.
No, listen, he said that in the
I
past.
thought he said, oh, he has?
He put out
Oh,
a
he
whole,
did put that.
Yes, yes. He put a whole statement out. You know, there are a lot of people that say we don't want to be political.
I thought you said my in that press
No,
conference.
not in that press conference. He's
That's true.
You know, he put out a whole
You're
statement
right. Let me shut up.
that said he supported Israel. And here again, he says that, you know, he's heard so many good things about Israel and he can't wait to go there. And, you know, it's disheartening when you look up to a player, you know, because I love LeBron James. I think there's so many things that he does as an athlete. Like, he's hands down probably the top athletes and basketball players, top 5 ever who ever played the game. You know, but it was so disheartening to hear that and have never heard him say one thing about the Palestinians losing their life. It's so disheartening to know that we're in a time where the world is seeing kids and babies die still to this day, and he's never said one thing about that. Never. And it's really disheartening to me, and I really don't get how you have a platform that big, you know, and understand, and you're not blind to what's happening. You see the death, you see the loss of life, you see people actually being killed, you see an administration, you watch what Netanyahu is doing, you know, who is the prime minister of Israel, and never one time have you ever said anything on behalf or in support of people who are losing their life.
Who are being killed.
Right. Being murdered.
Because they want to make sure we don't say they're losing their lives because you could have died of heart disease.
Exactly.
But
who
no,
are
they
being
being
murdered.
bombed to
People
death.
are being bombed to
That's
death
right.
and murdered. And the fact that you're probably arguably the biggest athlete in this world, and you have a platform, and you constantly see the need to speak up on behalf of Israel, but to never say that, you know, I don't even want to see the Palestinian people being murdered. That I want to see an end to this. But just to say that you stand by Israel and you can't wait to go to Israel, never have said anything about Palestine, it's so disheartening to me. And that's why I want to shout out people like Kyrie, who, even with the backlash, has always stood firm. You know, you see him representing something that stands for the people in Palestine. You might see him wear a scarf, you might see him wear a hat, you might see him wear a button, and he's been vocal, you know, and he utilizes his platform, and he's lost a lot, and that takes integrity for me, and you know, and that's why he's my favorite. This, like, we've had the Jordans, and then we had the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars, who were willing to take on that stance because there was a humanitarian crisis, who wanted to stand on the side of the people. And it really hurts me because I actually, I love LeBron's time. He has schools. He's done so much for our people, but I just don't understand how you constantly can utilize your voice to speak on one half of something and just ignore the half where people are being killed and murdered and not even acknowledge it one time. It's so obtuse. Right, it's so obtuse for you to constantly utilize your platform for that, and it's disheartening to me. So I want to just shout out someone like Kyrie, who I've watched as a young boy, from 19 years old, came into this league, and he's always stood with principles. He's always stood with morals. He was willing to sacrifice, compromise, and even lose because humanity was the most important thing for him.
LeBron he don't believe that shit. Don't you let him sit there and tell. He don't believe it at all.
But the fact
these
that he
people are doing what these managers and all these folks, that these handlers tell you. And that doesn't mean that the handlers are connected to Israel in some way. Even black people will be scared to death. Black people, Latinos, people, white folks that are not even Jewish, just people in general, get so nervous about the possibility of losing money or losing access or being like Kyrie, who's taken some massive, massive blows for his support of the Palestinian people and LeBron has said things on behalf of Black folks who've been killed, but Kyrie has a different way. He takes it to the next level.
Not only has he said
Kyrie's out here with us.
He gonna put
send
his
money, time, walk the streets.
And that's to me is what it is to be
right.
Why did you want to get hundreds of millions of dollars and you can't contribute to the benefit of humanity? Really contribute
and be public about it. Because see, this is the thing. He would probably say nobody knows what he's done, right? Maybe he has given to.
We know that you said I support Israel.
No, I know that.
We know that you said that you can't wait to go to Israel.
I know that, but I'm not even talking about that. I was more so honing in on Black issues, right? Like Black issues. I don't know if LeBron James gave money to Trayvon Martin's family. I don't know. I didn't ask. We ain't never discussed that. And shout out to Sabrina Fulton. It was her 60th birthday this week as well. So it's just a lot of things going on. People living, people passing, a lot happening. Love you so much, Sabrina. But I don't know. He may have given Mike Brown's family. He may have. We don't know. But there's something to be said about a person like Kyrie who doesn't go around telling it, but he ain't going to stop you from saying it if that's what you choose to do. There are people who put you under NDA that they don't want anybody to know that they supported certain causes because they're so concerned about these managers and what the people going to say and you know in the league and whoever these big shots are. Who, again, I want to be clear because what they will try to do is say that I'm saying that Jewish people or Israelis are the ones, or Zionists rather, that's what they'll try to say, are controlling, which would be a trope, right? Are controlling the way that celebrities, influencers, people with money move. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I have watched Black folks who ain't never traveled to Israel. They don't even know what the word Zionism means. And still, they will tell you, oh, no, you can't say that because the mass are going to be mad. You talking about, no. That's what they do. And so it's sad because Kyrie is an example of someone who, first of all, has studied history. Kyrie is a student of history. He knows. He understands. And the rest of these people, that's not their concern, right? It ain't got nothing to do with me. I worked my way up. I worked my way out. And I'm not about to lose my fortune because, or lose my fortunate status because I decide to step into this thing over here. And it's really sad. But I can tell you one thing. When LeBron was told to shut up and dribble, that's also what they're telling him about Palestine. Shut up and play basketball. And talk about Israel. You mean you heard great things? That's all you heard? Yeah. Are you kidding me? You heard great things about a place where there are streets that Palestinians can't even walk on the same street with the Israelis? Yeah. You heard about that? Because we saw it.
We literally saw it. And it's crazy. And I was watching a video where Netanyahu was in America, and he got like a standing ovation with all of the elected. It was just one of the weirdest things. I just think that
I went to DC the other day, and you can't even get around because Netanyahu was in town.
Yeah, and when he was in town, they had a meeting, and they stood and clapped for this man for like 10 minutes. And
that was your boy. What's the football team? One of them football teams. I don't know the names, but it was the owner of the football team who was giving Netanyahu a signed football, I think, and they was giving him some kind of award for being the greatest. This man. No,
this was in like a congressional meeting.
Oh, that might have been. But it was a football owner of a team owner. I remember I saw it.
This is a war
and the
criminal.
man is classified as a war criminal, but it gives you an understanding of why, to go back to an earlier point. The Epstein files are as they are, and nobody has really been held accountable for it, right? Because just like other nations are holding folks accountable, they have literal trials and stuff. They have open investigations in other nations where people have to step down from major positions because they have been named in the Epstein files, okay? In other countries. America ain't doing shit about what has happened. Just throwing Ghislaine Maxwell in jail, that ain't shit. That happened because you almost had no other choice but to do something. There is a roster, including the president of the United States, who are implicated in those files. And for whatever reason, America just turns its blind eye, can't see, can't hear, and can't do anything about it. And it's the same thing that happened every time the United Nations voted on whether or not funding and sanctions should be stopped. The funding should be stopped and sanctions should be put on Israel for killing the Palestinian people and doing Jenny, as they would say. Not supposed to say the whole word. And doing Jenny on the Palestinian people. America would be one of the only nations that sent a black woman to sit her ass there and raise her hand against people fighting for the civil rights of Palestinians. And that is the same thing that's happening with the damn Epstein files. America is, again, allowing this to happen and doing nothing while other nations around the damn world are like, unfortunately, you can't be our whoever. And you in the files.
Yeah, the files are something. It's too dark in them files, y'all. Every day, I don't even want to talk about that. We've come to the end of another episode of TMI. Shout out to Afia Atamenza and our brother, Mark Thompson. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at TMI_show and on YouTube, TMI Show PC. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika's not going to always be wrong, but we will both, always be authentic. R.I.P. to the late, great Reverend Jesse Jackson. You may be gone, but you'll never be forgotten.
Peace.
That's how we own it.